culminate in the present and have a practical application as to how we can use it in this time. If the application of it is not practical, or it cannot be used in this time, then it's of no value. It's of no value. So in order for the Quran to have value, Allah revealed it in the form that it will always be contemporary. Always be contemporary. Each generation will be able to look at the Quran and unlock the messages within that Quran. Unlock the messages as the generation or two before might not have been able to see, or might not have been able to come into that understanding. Allah blesses each generation with understanding of the Quran. Our time is a special time because we have been blessed to be part of this time. All of the human beings is part of this time, because the Quran talks about a time when religion is going to be plain, when it's going to be clear. And they're talking about a time when the truth becomes the tool, truth becomes the way, truth becomes the application of all our thoughts and ideas will come through truth. And that would open up everything else. As we are here in America, we're here in America for a special reason. Because Allah is opening up Islam to the world. Because Allah is opening up the impact of Islam to the world. So the whole world can see the power of Allah, the power of the Quran, the power of the life example of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's been going over a period of years. It didn't just happen all of a sudden. In the Quran, it's all of a sudden, and when Allah explains it, it seems all of a sudden, but it takes time. It takes generations. It took generations for me to even say what I'm saying today. I didn't just suddenly say this, no. It took a generation before me and a generation before them to begin to see and understand what Allah is doing. And as each generation became a little better in understanding and unlocking the messages in the Quran, we can explain it a little better, and we need to explain it a little better because it's what will help cure the society of its problems. What would further the future, what will further man into the future, depends greatly on our understanding. Now, it's not like treading water. Treading water is a little different. Treading water is you in the ocean, you just keep yourself afloat by flicking your feet and paddling your hands. That's not what this is about. This is a little different. A generation had been prepared for this day. And many of you are part of that generation. Many of you are part of the generation who came during the time of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That was a preparation generation. The next generation couldn't come into existence if that generation didn't come into existence. And that generation came into existence with a purpose. And those of you who was at that time could see the purpose clearly because it was a moving time. It was a time where motion determined the direction of the people. And when we went out to talk to the African Americans specifically, we marketed to the African American. That was our target market. So we wasn't under no stress as to where this should go. We was clear. The target market for the message of that time was the African American community. We marketed like that. The Muhammad Speaks newspaper. Everything was geared toward to attract the African American to what? To the truth of the time in which that message was being delivered. Now we've moved out of that time. We're into a different time. We're into a different era. But the problem still has to be solved. The problem still has to be solved. The problem of falsehood controlling the environment. The problem of lies being the generator of the motions of the society. the problem of usury. That people see usury as a business and not business. The predatory mentality, we're in that situation. We're in a situation where we are tied down by these concepts of racism, these concepts of white supremacy, black supremacy, using color as a reference to character. We're tied down in that time. Now that time also has a solution. And that same Quran has the solution for this time. It says, ذَلِكَ كِتَابٌ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the book. It's guidance for those who have a love, those who have courage, those who seek help from the Creator. Many would tell us that the African American at one time didn't really have this love for Allah, but they're lying. It's a lie. When the African was brought here, and those who were already here, don't think that when the European came to America, was nobody here. When the European came to America, the Aztecs were here, building civilizations. When the European came to America, the Incas were here, building 40 million people, building big civilizations. In this part of the world, we had the Lenape, from Connecticut all the way down to Delaware. Those people were here. And in that time, we saw that time those people deteriorate for one cause or another. But in that time, we find that the ones who came over on their own, or the ones who came during the slave ship, they had a belief in a deity. They believed in God. They had no hope, no alternative but to call on the Creator. Because the slave master wasn't giving them justice. The slave master wasn't giving them freedom. The slave master wasn't giving them the things they needed to perpetuate their society or their culture. So they had to call on God. So we find in our history, many of the slaves, although some of them were Muslims, they called in that tongue. Some of them weren't Muslim. They were of different tribes. They called in those tongues. But we find evidence that the African believed in a deity, believed in God. And that's something we should hold on to. We should be our first thing that we want to connect to when dealing with our past, dealing with our culture, is to believe in God, to believe in Allah. Our people were sincere in that effort. That was the only thing they had to turn to. And it worked. Because in time, Allah began to lighten the load of oppression. He began to lighten the load of racism. He began to lighten the load of all those other things. And we find now, in this day and time, we have come to an understanding of the Quran. We've come to a time where we believe in Allah in the essence of how it is preached in the Quran, how it is taught in the Quran. When Imam Muhammad came into office, he came on the heels of his father, who had just established one of the most important organizations of the time, the Nation of Islam. The impact of the Nation of Islam was so important to the African American people and the world. But it was temporary. It was temporary. It was temporary because it was not the essence of Quran. It was the essence of belief. Because everybody in the Nation of Islam that I knew, and everything I even saw, they believed in Allah. Or they had a different way of saying, and they all professed that this book, the Holy Quran, was the book. The Holy Quran was the book. No matter what else they read, the Holy Quran was the book. So when Imam Muhammad came into office, he used the Quran as the basis on bringing that group specifically, into a better understanding of this Quran and a better understanding of Allah. And as he did that, he began to release the minds of those who accepted what he was teaching to be able to grow and develop on their own in this Quran, to be able to develop and grow on their own in this society. The minds are being released. Like the atoms, you know how the atoms are. They talk about the atoms and the molecular connection and atoms, how the electrons split the atom by electrons hitting one another. That's what was happening in the African American community. As Imam Muhammad began to teach, began to show the secrets or the message in the Quran in clear understanding. Now, what does that do as a responsibility for us today? What is our responsibility? What do you think our responsibility is? That's a question we all have to answer. Because the responsibility of the generation that came before us was to bring an understanding and enlightenment enough to the African American people that they could be able to start to build a society based on the Quran. And then the understanding that Imam Muhammad brought was mind releasing. Was mind releasing. Now we're able to walk on our own 2 feet, think for ourselves, come to logical conclusions with our own mind. And one thing we must take into consideration of all those who came before us, even those before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, far back as Frederick Douglass and all the rest of them. One thing they did, they prepared themselves. They prepared themselves. Preparation is key to understanding. How did they prepare themselves? They studied everything they can get their hands on. They studied books after books. And those of you who have not yet read Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington, that's a book you must read as an African American. You must read the logic that's in that book. Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. Get it and read it. And not only that, every Muslim, especially those who have come through this experience, should be reading every day. You should not let your mind rest without developing it. How are you going to be who Allah created you to be if you're not developing what He gave you? He gave us our mind as a principal thing in His whole creation. It's the mind of man. And if we are not developing it, He gave it to us every day. Every day we should be developing our mind. And there's no one should be saying, oh, I'm too old. Don't believe that lie. If you tell yourself that lie, you need to stop it. Oh, I'm too young. No, that's another lie. Oh, I'm a female. That's a lie. The mind was designed to develop. The mind was designed to grow and be able to change and reroute this whole creation. The creation we live in is being changed and motion and put in motion by the mind. And if we neglect developing the mind, what are we doing? We're neglecting the word of Allah. We're neglecting what Allah has given us. No one has to tell you, oh, brother, you neglect. No, you know whether you're neglecting or not. It's your mind. You're learning your way into this creation. Allah brought you in. You have to develop it. And all you have to do is continually developing your mind each and every day. When we get up in the morning, what do? Make salat. You're talking you developing your mind. When you make salat, you calling on Allah. When you make salat, then you say some ayahs from the Quran. You still calling Allah. When you finish with that, and those of you who do this, you'll notice it yourself. Your mind is clear. Your mind is clear and open for progress. Open to develop even more. Not just Quran. Man has to learn about everything in this creation. How in the world can we have the creation to bow down to that which Allah has given us, the mind, if we are not learning it? Scientists do this. Scientists do this. They study the science that Allah created. This is Allah's creation. They know they didn't create it, the scientists. And they study it. Because they know in studying it, they come closer to the Creator. And that's what we do. we study and develop our mind, we become closer to the Creator. Because the Creator is who created it. We didn't create the mind. Allah created it. And the more we develop it, we're saying, oh Allah, thank you for bringing me into this time to develop that which you have gifted me with. It's a gift. And I'm going to develop that gift as long as I live. I'm going to develop it so it can help me, help others, and help the world. But that's a commitment we should make each and every day. We have a goal. We have a direction. And that direction is to bring the world into the understanding that the mind that Allah has created is what will develop this creation, and it should be led by the moral consciousness of the human being. Not by our emotions, not by our greed, not even by our intellect. And it's an intellectual capacity. But it should be led by the moral capacity. What is right and what is wrong. That's one of the things that we must adhere to as we grow and develop. We're not finished. If we think we are finished, we have the wrong concept. We're just getting started. If you came in Islam today and you came into this community, and should be in any community, you're just getting started. If you come in and you just have one arm or one leg, or you, like me, sick, or trying to walk around, you're just getting started. Don't see yourself as finishing. See yourself as starting. See yourself as beginning something that Allah's with you. Who would be with you? Who do you want with you other than Allah? The one who created you. He created you. At the moment you hear, and the moment you say, La ilaha illallah, that's what you're saying. There is no deity except Allah, and that's the one I serve. So I'm developing everything about me. Everything there is to develop, I'm going to develop. If I have to just learn to walk a little faster, talk a little faster, read a little more, whatever it is, improve on myself, then we are following Allah's word. You don't have to have nobody tell you that. The Quran says that. I remember, well, take a short break. So in closing, I want to emphasize that I remember the first book I wrote. It was called Success is Automatic. And the reason I came to that concept was because I was reading Quran and all other texts, religious texts, and I couldn't find anywhere in any of the texts that it said that Allah created man to fail. Not one word, not one sentence, not two words together could you find where Allah created man to fail. So then that tells us that success for man, especially for man, is automatic because it's in our nature. And all we have to do is unlock our industrious nature and we can achieve our dreams. This is what Allah has for us. Don't let anybody tell you anything different, because it's not. Read the Quran, you'll see that's true. This creation is supposed to be good for the good and the bad. It's not just for the ruthless people. It's also those here for the kind people, the people who love Allah. We get the benefit here and the benefit in the hereafter. This is Quran. Life-giving teachings of the Quran. It's not treading water. It's swimming. It's not treading water. It's swimming in a direction to achieve a goal. And that goal, first of all, is to develop yourself. Second off, to develop those around you. Then to develop the society. Allah says it in this way in the Quran. He said, save yourself first. Then your family and the society. This is the command. This is not like, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do it. No, no. Save yourself first. That means develop yourself. That means make yourself as strong, as wise, as much as possible you can within your grip, your gain, your thinking. Improve on yourself. And then improve upon those, help those around you to improve. And help the society to improve. Isn't that what Islam is about? Isn't that what being Muslim is about? Changing the world, making the world better? That's where all of this message in the Quran, the message of the Quran, this is a modern, contemporary Quran, and the message is there for us to make progress into the future and help the world, the secular world, to become more governed by moral consciousness. We can't look for the secular world to lead us. It's the Quran that leads us. And that develops the moral consciousness. So with that, ربنا اتينا في الدنيا حسنة والآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. Our Lord, give us the best of this world and of the hereafter. Protect us from the fire. Be common to us.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Hayya ala salat, hayya ala falah. Kaqamat as-salat, kaqamat as-salat. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. سمع الله لمن حمده. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi